Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, boy, oh boy, do we have some fun news to talk about today. But before we get there, we got to go through some other stuff. We'll stick to the important stuff today because I don't want to skip anything. But why don't we start with the injury report? Kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, it's an extensive report as usual. Lots of guys on the list. Lots of most of them are okay, which I guess is partly the good news. The other is that Devontae Wyatt was back in limited fashion, which is fantastic. Because again, even though he wasn't at his best, he was still at the time our best pass rusher on the team. With Rashawn Gary's seeming emergence, potentially getting Wyatt back. Who knows, man? Maybe we'll really crack this thing open. But not 100% he'll be back, but on Wednesday being limited, you got to feel a little bit better about that. You've also got Jair limited, Kenny limited, Keyshawn limited, Jaden Reed limited, Watson limited, Colby was full participant. Most of these guys are on the right track working back from injury, which is a good thing, like Christian and whatnot. The bad news is there's several people that did not participate at all. Ballantyne would be one. He has an ankle injury, not the biggest disaster. He's not a starter for us. Then you got some offensive line seeming disasters here. Elton Jenkins and Josh Myers, neither of them participated in practice. Elton Jenkins with a glute injury, Josh Myers with a wrist injury. And then in addition to that, Quay Walker had a concussion in the game. We all saw that. He went out. Looked actually quite bad. I don't know if I even mentioned it on the show at all, but it certainly crossed my mind as it was happening. The way his body froze up, it kind of reminded me of injuries similar to Tua. That may not have been what happened. Maybe it was just, sort of like a holy crap, this hurts thing. I don't know, but it looked real ugly, and my immediate thought was, oh man, he got a real bad concussion. And the fact that the injury was a concussion makes me worry a little bit about him and his, health in general, I suppose. But obviously the biggest concern here is the offensive line, with not only Elton Jenkins, who's a good football player for us, but Josh Myers. Regardless of what you think of Josh, you lose those two guys, and you look at who the two replacements are going to end up being, which at this time I don't exactly know who they would be. Obviously, we have Jordan Morgan that could fill in at guard. Would we just see Jacob Monk come in at center? We probably would. I know some people would probably want to push Zach Tom into center or do something creative like that. I think that's nonsense. I think it just is what it is. I think it would be Jordan Morgan fills in at guard. Whether we switch Sean, I don't know. But then you'd have Jacob Monk, who is our backup center, playing center. So we'll see. Hopefully those guys can bounce back. At least one of them would be ideal. If Josh Myers does not, but Elton Jenkins does, I would assume Elton Jenkins would be our center. Jordan Morgan would slot in at guard. If Josh Myers not Elton Jenkins, then Jordan Morgan would just take that spot. So we'll see how she goes there. As far as Quay, we kind of saw the plan last week that may change opponent to opponent, but clearly the next up at linebacker after Quay for Quay's position was Eric Wilson, so we'll probably see more of that. It's possible they change it, maybe Edrin, whatever, but considering how good of a job Eric Wilson did, probably stay that way, but who knows. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they mostly seem to be okay. They've got Eric Armstead was limited with a shoulder injury. Gabe Davis limited with a knee injury. Evan Ingram limited with a hamstring. ETN limited with a hamstring. Otomewo, defensive end, calf injury. Foye Olukan, foot injury limited. And Andrew Wingard limited with a knee injury. The only guy that did not participate was Cam Robinson. It's not a guarantee that these guys play just because they're limited. They may not, but we'll have to see as we get a little bit further along. But Cam Robinson is quite significant. He is their left tackle. They have had a bunch of different guys there, presumably because of Cam Robinson's injury issues. but he went out after only playing 5 snaps against New England. They've had 4 other guys slot in there. Only one for a significant period of time, and that was Walker Little. That will be who's starting instead of Cam Robinson if he can't play. But Cam Robinson has been a pretty solid tackle for them. He's got a 72 pass blocking grade, but really that's just because of 2 really bad games for whatever reason that happened. Otherwise, you're looking at 82, 83, 87, 80, and 79. So usually very, very good pass blocker. Just completely crapped the bed against Buffalo and then a little bit against Cleveland. He's given up 15 total pressures. 12 of them were in those 2 games. 8 was against Buffalo. 2 sacks, 3 hits, 3 hurries. Must have just been a ridiculous mismatch, but most of the time he's going to produce at a really high level. The run blocking is very Packers-like. It's mediocre, just kind of hovers in the 60s. So he's a good football player, so not having him would be a big deal. Walker Little, definitely not as good of a player. He was a second-round pick out of Stanford back in 2021. He's been okay. He kind of sets a pretty high floor, but his grades over the last 3 years for pass blocking, 70, 62, 62. So that's kind of his general range. It's a little bit higher this year, but that's just because he had a really good game against New England, which is not super surprising because New England's terrible, but 87 pass blocking, 73 run blocking. I wouldn't really see that as being indicative of how he is. For example, against Buffalo, he played 24 snaps. It was 48 and then 59 run blocking. Bottom line, it's significant if they go from Cam Robinson to Walker Little. And again, we could go over some of the other guys. I mean, these are very impactful players: Eric Armstead, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram, et cetera, Travis Etienne. But until we get a better idea of how they're progressing, like if they're still limited through Thursday and certainly Friday, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But for now, we'll just kind of leave it alone. I don't want to go through everybody. Plus, we got some other stuff to talk about. For instance, the Packers did re-sign Matt Orzech, which I know a lot of people are pretty upset about that. They had let him go. I don't even know if I mentioned it because it's not really worth mentioning. He was always presumed to come back, but there was always a chance, a very slight chance, that who knows, maybe they end up finding somebody else. In that period of time that they cut him to do some roster maneuvering, they did not find anybody else. They also did cut or release Jonathan Ford. Now, this is also kind of an expected thing. It's not a huge deal. They had just raised, or I think they brought Ford back from IR, and the expectation here is that they're going to release Ford and then re-sign him to the practice squad. There's always a chance that you could lose him, but that's a pretty low chance. Jonathan Ford is not necessarily, a dominant football player that anybody's going to feel the need to scoop up. Could happen, but probably not. But the big news of the day, Robert Saleh is apparently officially a Green Bay Packer. Maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, but I don't care. That's how I'm going to say it. Been begging for this to be a thing. And it is funny because I know it's a whole new day for you, but I just got done recording Packernet After Dark, and one of the things that I did, like at the very end, was go on a tirade about the frickin' Jets and Aaron Rodgers being stupid and thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. And, look at how things are going over there. The fact that we can add to that whole storyline with Aaron Rodgers, to whatever degree you want to say that it happened, contributed to Robert Saleh getting fired, even if on the lowest end he had given the okay, because I guarantee you they didn't do it without his approval. And now Robert Saleh is going to his old team to make them better while you wallow with frickin' 2 wins or whatever nonsense they have. Just freaking beautiful. Just nonstop benefiting from teams being stupid, specifically the Jets, which has been great, but also a few others we've been taking advantage of, and I absolutely love it. But Robert Saleh, despite the fact that I don't think he's necessarily the greatest head coach in the world, is by all accounts a very, very, very good defensive mind. He was the architect of the 49ers defense that was absolutely dominant. Many people under him got hired away for other positions. He went over to the Jets, made the Jets a top 5 defense for several years. I believe the Jets were the number 1 defense over Saleh's time in New York, or New Jersey for the Jets. In that span, top defense in football. Jets say, nah, we're going to let him go. Okay, great. Anyways, so of course we get on the horn, start calling him, and he's like, yeah, no, sorry, I'm going to enjoy my vacation. Matt LaFleur essentially is like, no, that's cool, yeah, no big deal. Apparently, after his little vacation, Matt LaFleur continued to pester him, and what we were all hoping would happen did happen. Really low-stress job. We're going to pay you. You come in here. You crash at my place. You wear frickin' pajamas at practice. I don't give a crap as long as it's green. I'll buy you some green pajamas. And how do they get around the whole thing with defense and not pissing off Hafley? Simple. He's not working on defense. He's helping with the offense. It's absolutely fantastic. So let's go through a little bit of this. He was, I believe the way that this all worked is he was identified being at practice. There's pictures of it and whatnot. I can't imagine how exciting that must have been. And again, maybe there was some foreknowledge. I know some people knew before this, but to be one of the beat writers, to go out to practice, and frickin' Robert Saleh is sitting on the practice field, standing there, in Robert Saleh fashion, the big frickin' jack dude, crossed arms, looking all intense, like, oh, what is he doing here? Oh, man. But the first question was essentially, does Robert have a title? Did you hire him? Is he just helping out? Like, what's going on? And Matt LaFleur says, yeah, he's going to be helping us on the offensive side of the ball. He said, we've been friends for a long time, going all the way back to Central Michigan. They really have been, for a long time. They've been working together, best men at each other's weddings, all that whole thing. And just said it thought it'd be a good idea to bring him in for his defensive perspective on the offensive side, which I've always said needs to happen. All the way back to the McCarthy days, I was like, why don't you have defense help your offense and offense help your defense? And I think, I don't know if it was McCarthy or if it was LaFleur, one of them said that they actually had sessions where they would do that, where the defense would critique the offense, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, but to actually have dedicated staff, not let's take time off with the defense's time to actually analyze the offense, and same with the offense, to take away time that could be preparing the offense, analyzing the other defense, et cetera, et cetera. To simply have a defensive guy, let's just call him a defensive guy. Let's leave aside his intense and accomplished acumen. To have him come in to essentially be like, all right, I'm going to run through my game plan for this. And as I do it, because, the head coach has got to come in and say, here's our game plan for the upcoming opponent, the Jacksonville Jaguars, et cetera. To have Saleh kind of over your shoulder as you go through and say, I think we're going to attack this, whatever, because what is he doing? What is Matt LaFleur doing? He's attacking a defense. So to have a defensive mind on staff in the offensive meeting to help you go through the process of analyzing a defense, which is essentially what an offensive coordinator has to do, analyze a defense and help you figure out how to pick them apart, as well as, of course, analyze your offense and say, here's kind of what I would do, here's maybe some of your weaknesses here. By the way, can I just remind everybody, the team that has been the bane of our freaking existence for a very long time is the team that Robert Saleh built. And we could talk about Shanahan. Shanahan did a great job, all that stuff, but that freaking defense is a major part of it. Okay? The offense is, and the defense is. If nothing else, if we get nothing else from this, I just want to have Saleh in the building and go, just give me the answers to the test, dude. How do you guys run circles around us every time? Do you even bother to prepare, or is there just a sheet that says, here's how to beat Matt LaFleur? What are we doing wrong? Why can our offense not penetrate your defense? Because remember, we have the 49ers coming up this year. If all we get out of Saleh is that we get to go and beat the crap out of the 49ers, I'm content. The question was then asked, is he going to be here more days or weeks or for the rest of the year or what? And Matt LaFleur said it's a fluid situation. He said it's pretty fluid, which I thought was hilarious because there were reports that he was only going to be here through Thursday. And then Matt LaFleur said, yeah, it's fluid. In other words, it's like, so he's just going to be here till Thursday? And Matt LaFleur's like, yeah, we'll see. He's currently staying through Thursday. He's going to go back on Friday. He's staying with with Matt LaFleur and his wife for now. So it is quasi-temporary, but he's going to be helping out the Green Bay Packers in their offense. I love that. Like, yeah, he's going to be here through Thursday, and then he's going to head back. Oh, is that it? Well, yeah, we'll see. He mentioned sort of the process. The question was something like, did you wait about 5 minutes before he left New York before you reached out? And he's like, we're friends. Of course, I reached out right away, and I talked to him and whatnot. I didn't want to put too much pressure on him. Just offered the opportunity if he wanted to stay involved. And again, that's all I asked. I guess that's not true. I asked for you to do that and to never stop doing that, even if he says no, to just continue pestering him because this is the right thing and it needs to happen. Bro, you're best friends with Robert Saleh. Get him in the building now. Not playing with you. Next question about Saleh was, what does it say that he took the time to come out here rather than go to the beach? And he just said, it speaks to how much Saleh loves football. Noted that it's tough when the game just gets taken away from you like that. Went on to say, I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say, which is true. It's still not the right decision. Like, if you got to find a way to make it work. If he's not the guy for that, then get an assistant head coach. Get some other kind of structure in there. I don't know what you have to do, but you don't take Robert Saleh out of the equation. Your offense is the problem, right? That and the drama, which is kind of a secondary deal, because that kind of goes by the wayside when you start winning. So fix the offense, and you're good to go. Just so stupid. Matt LaFleur goes on to say he has an elite defensive mind, but they want him on the offensive side to help attack defenses, which I'm perfectly fine with. I understand not wanting to step on the toes of Jeff Hafley, and I think that's why he's being so overt in his saying of that, because I think there's going to be a lot of, Hafley took a big step to come to the NFL, to leave college football as a head coach and to take a job as a defensive coordinator. I mean, that's a big move, and to have Saleh in the building has got to have you a bit on high alert, even if you got the coach telling you. So I'm sure that's why Matt LaFleur is hammering that over and over. It's offense. It's offense. It's just offense. He has nothing to do with defense. He says it 1,000 times. Here's the other thing that I know is true. Matt LaFleur is not going to be mad if Saleh and Hafley have some conversations, right? He's never going to say that to Hafley because that's your defense, et cetera, et cetera. Is he going to throw some parties at his house that only have Saleh and Hafley that are invited to the party? Probably, yes. I think that's probably going to be a thing. They're going to have, every night they're going to be having dinners, and they're going to invite Saleh from wherever he is. I'll fly the frickin' guy in. We'll bring him in on Zoom to come attend this quote-unquote party that Hafley's at, and then I'm going to leave the room and just see what happens, because it's not going to be the worst thing in the world if Hafley and Saleh have some conversations. I understand, and maybe Hafley's not going to want to. Maybe it's kind of a screw you, this is my defense, and I'm not going to play that game. But it wouldn't be the worst thing if he just kind of goes to Saleh and he's like, hey, you need to take a look at this? What are they going to do, arrest him? If they hire him as an offensive assistant or whatever the job is? What, is Roger Goodell going to come in and friggin' find the organization? Of course not. They don't give a crap. Head coach can do whatever he wants as far as delegation of assignments. So if they end up working together, all the better. But of course, that's not why we brought him here. Of course, that has nothing to do with anything. Hey, Hafley, if you're out there, don't be too proud, man. You're the man. You're doing a great job. If there's any questions, though, you know what I mean? If any thoughts as to man, this offense is complex, and, you've played them a bunch, maybe the Jaguars, AFC team, maybe you've kind of experienced them, the coaching staff, whatever. You've been in the NFL for a long time. You know how to adapt. You know what I mean? Wouldn't be the worst thing to just throw a couple questions. Hafley, you're the man. You're smarter than Saleh. You're better than Saleh, all that stuff. But it takes time to get acclimated. Plus, some other guys have random information that you don't. Just plug in, bro. That's all I'm saying. That question, of course, was asked. Would there be a scenario where Jeff, presumably the defensive coordinator, would lean on him? No. And he said, I want to keep him away from the defense. Defense has a great thing going. It's year one, and they got to go through it themselves, right? Any struggles, they go through it themselves. Damn it. You don't ever ask him a question. Do you understand? And Saleh, if I ever see you near Jeff Hafley, I'm going to kill you. Again, all of this is to give Hafley assurances. This just overly cinematic Broadway performance of, the separation of church and state here. If you even say Bible, I'm gonna kill you. I'm telling you, this is just a performance. There's no way that Matt LaFleur is going to, like, Hafley's going to go to LaFleur and be like, hey, I had a question about this. I had some ideas. I wanted to run it by Saleh. Would that be okay? He's like, no, you will suffer. And it's like, well, he's got experience with this thing. I just thought, like, he does this creative thing that I want to implement, and I just got a question. No, absolutely not. You will never. All right, you figure it out yourself, you frickin' idiot. I hate you. Do you understand that? It's not going to happen. This is all a show to give Hafley and his staff, right? He's got a big defensive staff under him, and he doesn't want there to be any questions from him all the way down to what the hell's going on here. Like, are we being replaced? Like, what? This is a big part of the situation, making sure that everybody's okay with this. And the best way to do that is to say, he is strictly helping us with offense. He has nothing to do with the defense. There will be no communication between the two. I don't want them even looking at each other. Period. End of story. And I will not answer any more questions about that. But with that, folks, we got Saleh. All right, we got Saleh. Now, again, I'm obviously very excited about this, and I'm speaking off the cuff here. But for the sake of clarity, for those of you coming here for information and not just having a fun party, I don't know the extent of his work in Green Bay. I don't know how long he'll be here, how often he'll be here. Again, the only thing we know is he was asked, he said he's leaving Thursday, right? And he also said that it's important that he spend time with his family, but he also said all these things are kind of fluid. In other words, it's not like this is all we have. There's an expectation of more, but not sure what that means. Is he going to be a analyst from afar? That would be kind of my guess. In other words, you may not see him at practice anymore. He's kind of here. He's going to meet with the team. He's going to shake some hands, talk with Mark and Gutekunst and the crew and all that. The offensive staff, I'm sure he didn't even get near Hafley. God forbid. But whether or not they're going to require him to be back or are just going to kind of send him things to review so that he can, again, as a compromise so that he can spend more time with his family or whatever. I don't really know. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like there isn't an expectation that it's going to go further. Does that make sense? I didn't get the impression that the most likely scenario is that he's here for this week, he's going to give a couple pointers, and then he's done with the Packers. That is not the impression that I got. I do wonder how that works, though. Are they paying him on a contract basis? And maybe contract was the wrong word because that's how most of them get paid. But like, is it a week-to-week consulting thing? We're going to pay him, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it would cost to get Saleh in the building to help us game plan for this week. I don't know. We should probably take a break, though. I do know that much. Exciting stuff, and hopefully we get a little bit more information on exactly what all this means. But, absolute worst-case scenario, he gives a couple pointers, and we part ways, but that information obviously stays. I think the real hope here is that maybe there could be a long-term position here. Well, you know what? Let's take a break. We're 25 minutes into this. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. What I was saying is, I would say the best case scenario, obviously he helps us through this year. Who knows, could help us win a Super Bowl. Beyond that, it would be nice if there was some kind of a long-term deal that could be worked out with the Packers. And you say, well, that's unlikely. He's going to get a head coaching job immediately. I don't know. I don't know that his resume of what happened this past year has everybody screaming, man, I want that guy to be my head coach. Defensive coordinator, of course. But could the Packers offer him more to have a more prominent role? Assistant head coach, offensive analyst, or defensive analyst, or whatever the position would be. That puts him above the coordinators. Something to that effect. Just wondering. Who knows? I don't know. I did want to briefly touch on this. I just kind of came across this as an article here from zonecoverage.com. Dan wrote it. But the article says the Packers shouldn't trade any veterans at deadline. And I thought about that, and it immediately made a bunch of sense. Now, my mind went two different places. One of them is the picture that they have here, which is Preston Smith, right? There's probably going to be some opportunities to maybe move some guys and maybe even get a haul. I mean, Gutekunst, it might be the smart thing if you can get, not necessarily a haul, but you can get better value than what they're providing you for a guy that, for whatever he's worth here, he's probably done after this year. And, just making prudent decisions. The issue with that, the Rasul Douglas thing, I think, was the right decision. I don't think he's been all that spectacular for Buffalo. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree because they've seen a couple highlights of him doing stuff, not realizing that there was 6 weeks in between where you didn't see him, and that's because he not only didn't do anything, he was actually quite terrible. But at the end of the day, when you look at the situation, if you look at that season in particular, we're talking about last year, he probably would have helped a little bit. He probably would have helped. And although I think every year there's probably going to be some prudent moves that could be made, whether it's, Preston Smith this year or, Kenny next year or whatever. I don't know exactly who's where with their contracts at this point, but I think we're at a point now where we just kind of need everything that we can get. And, you never know. Preston can catch fire from game to game. You can get into the playoffs with Preston not being very good, and he just goes off for that game. You could also have situations with a lot of injuries where you just could really use the depth, or let's put it this way, if you don't have the depth, it could be catastrophic to your season. And so I just, as soon as I saw it, something clicked in my head, and I just said, you know what, I agree. Not that it was ever a huge conversation. It was more about who could we trade to bring in, but it's always a conversation. I don't mean to pick on Preston, but it's just I'm staring at his picture right now, so it's top of mind. It also probably just makes the most sense when you're talking about veteran players that could potentially bring in some value. It feels like a very Packers move to do, even though I know they love Preston. I mean, there are certain guys you can just tell the organization really likes the guy, and I think Preston is way at the top of that list. But still, prudent is prudent, and the Packers are the Packers, and they do Packers stuff. But I do tend to agree. You never know when the injury bug is going to come. You never know the trajectory of certain players, right? We've seen a lot of guys really struggle. We've seen some guys start hot, cool off. Some guys start cool, get hot. Let's just bring in everything that we've got, and let's make sure we have every tool at our disposal when the time comes. Now, if something happens, something happens. But I just, even if there's a 1% chance that person is going to make the difference in a critical game in the playoffs or Super Bowl or whatever, I just don't want to screw with it this year. I just don't. We're heading in a good way. Things are going in a good direction. The roster seems real solid. Even if the individual pieces aren't working, the collective unit with all the pieces combined is working really well. And no, I agree. Anyways, I found this hilarious too. I've been telling you guys, whenever Matt LaFleur talks about the upcoming opponent, I don't really take any of it seriously. Most coaches probably do this, but I know Matt LaFleur lays it on pretty thick. The issue at hand is the fact that he just lies. Everybody's amazing. Everybody's the greatest thing ever. Some people take that very seriously. Like, no, we really got to watch out for this guy. Matt LaFleur even said he's like a great player. I mean, he would know. He's a head coach. He would know. Okay, here is what Matt LaFleur had to say about Darnell Savage.
More, please. How have you thought Savage is fitting over there?
I think Sav's done a nice job, just showing that versatility. Playing the nickel, playing the safety wherever they need him. They've had a couple of injuries. He goes down playing the nickel position, and he's an elite talent, no doubt about it. There's nothing he can't do. So happy to see him having success.
He's an elite talent. There's nothing he can't do. Yeah, except make the Packers roster. You wouldn't even give him a piddly little contract to stay on your team. A first-round pick, and Gutekunst's like, nope. I hate to do it. It reflects poorly on me. Don't like it. But this guy is booty cheeks, and he's not going to be staying here. And now we got Matt LaFleur over here talking about he's an elite defender. elite defender? I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go over to PFF, who's not a big fan of Darnell Savage over these years. There are 29 players who have been graded, right? So let's put 15. You know what? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's go 16th. 16th player down is Ventrell Miller. Over under 16th for Darnell Savage. Is he 1 through 15 or is he 17 through 29? Do. He's below. He is below 16th. He is not in the top half of the defense. All right. So what do we got that's halfway between there? So there's 13 more after that. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's go 7 spots down from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Miles Cole ranks 23rd. Is Darnell Savage in the top 23 or top 22? Or is he below 23rd, ranking 24th through 29th? He's worse. He's worse. He is ranked 25th out of 29 defensive players. In fact, if he was with the Green Bay Packers right now, this would be his second worst year ever. His year in 2022, where he really dipped down and he was like one of the worst in football, that's roughly the same grade. He had a 47.5 grade in 2022. He currently has a 48 grade. And that's with really good tackling grades. He has a 73 tackling grade. The problem is that he has a 51 run defense grade and a 49 coverage grade. Over 4 weeks, he had week 1 and then 5, 6, 7, presumably injured through that time. Don't care enough to look it up. His coverage grades have been 53, 55, 49, 54. He has been targeted 15 times, has given up 10 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown, with 1 pass breakup, 106 passer rating when targeted. So let's take a look at something for real quick. First of all, again, Savage has only played 4 games, right? Only 4. Xavier McKinney has played 7. Evan Williams has played 6. Let's combine Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. So we're talking 13 games between those two compared to 4 for Savage. Savage, again, has been targeted 15 times this year. Williams and McKinney have been targeted 19 times. Savage has given up 10 receptions. McKinney and Williams have given up 8. Savage has given up 94 yards. McKinney and Williams have given up 87. The longest reception that Savage has given up, 32 yards. The longest reception given up by either McKinney or Williams was 30 yards. Savage in 4 games has given up 1 touchdown. McKinney and Williams have given up 0. In fact, you can add Bullard to that list with an additional 7 games, and it's still 0. As for NFL passer rating when targeted, we'll look at Bullard because we can. First of all, Savage, as I said, 106. Bullard, 98.1. Bullard is the one that's struggling in the group. He has a 98.1. Evan Williams, 24.1. Xavier McKinney, an NFL passer rating when targeted of 8.9, which is stupid. Now, please understand, this is coming from a guy who said, maybe we should give Savage another chance. I'm a little bit nervous. Maybe he could thrive in this new system. We don't really have a lot of options. I still like his athleticism. That was me. I own that. All right? Fine. But Matt LaFleur is full of crap. I'm sorry. This is just a lie. And so, moving forward, when I tell you that here's what Matt LaFleur said about a player, and by the way, it doesn't carry any weight because he's complimentary of every player, especially a former player. I mean, listen, I'm sure he respects Darnell Savage, and he worked with him a lot and tried to make him whatever. That carries 0 weight. 0 weight. But I just thought that was funny. And I'm glad that finally I can give you, not for all I know, everybody who's listening is like, yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree. But I don't know. It's also possible everyone's like, you're full of crap. I don't know. It's nice to have definitive proof. Because there's nobody out there that's thinking, you know what? No, I still don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. I think Savage is way better. And I think maybe Matt LaFleur is telling the truth when he says that he's an elite talent and that he can do anything, even though, again, we decided not to keep him. But maybe that was a mistake. Maybe he's been elite this whole time and we just didn't see it. Come on, man. You know this guy's full of crap right now. All right, why don't we take a break? I want to take a peek at the NFC North in part because we got a game coming up today, I guess, for you. That is an NFC North game, and it makes me sad because the NFC North doesn't face any difficult opponents for a long time aside from each other. But we might as well talk about it. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so we got Minnesota and the Rams coming up. Look, I mean, the NFC North has got just a bunch of punching bags. They really do. I mean, the Green Bay Packers have got Jacksonville. Detroit has Tennessee. Minnesota has the Rams. And then Chicago has what should have been a tough battle against Washington, but their quarterback is out. So Washington is back to being a pile of crap team. Doesn't mean they can't find a way to win, but I don't think that's going to happen. As much as I would love to take a commanding lead at some point here, I just don't see that necessarily happening, and probably not for some time now, because it is just a constant nonsense crap fest. I mean, it is kind of funny because the NFC North is just going to pile on. Now, there's due to be an upset somewhere, and I hope it's not Green Bay, but there is due to be an upset. I know that somebody on Packernet After Dark had called about that, and we looked into it briefly, and it doesn't look great. I mean, trap games are trap games for a reason, but as I said, bad teams are bad teams for a reason as well. Jacksonville is going to be a trap game for every opponent they face this year that isn't a piece of crap, and yet they continue to lose. So I understand the fear, and there is reason for fear, but at the same time, there's no excuse. I mean, Green Bay is the far better team, and they need to beat the crap out of Jacksonville. The bottom line, I think if you were to pick an upset, you could make a case for Green Bay because if you didn't listen yesterday, I asked the robot, I said, give me the characteristics of a trap game. Because we talk about trap game, but when is it officially a trap game? And, they went through the checklist, and it's almost verbatim. First of all, sandwiched in between two tough games. We got the Texans and we got the Lions on either side. That's a big check mark on both accounts. Away game, yes, and it's not like away in Chicago right next door. It's down in Florida. Uncommon opponent. Jacksonville is absolutely an uncommon opponent. So just kind of down the line, you're checking the boxes. And I did look into some data. Some of it was worse than others. And the first thing I looked at, it was like 60% win rate. The other was like 47 or something. But in every case, it's so rare, there's almost no data. I mean, I think at most there are maybe 2 to 3 times the Packers have faced this under Matt LaFleur's tenure. But again, you could absolutely see this as a trap game. Same goes for Detroit, right? Obviously, Minnesota was a really big game for Detroit. Green Bay is a really big game for Detroit next week. What do they have here? They got a trap game. Uncommon AFC opponent. It is at home, but it's an uncommon AFC opponent sandwiched between 2 big games. You could easily see that as some kind of a trap game. Chicago. Now, they're not sandwiched between jack squat. They haven't faced a good team in like 4 weeks. They're going to go another 3 or so weeks without facing a good team because, screw them. But you could still make the case that Washington, first of all, is just a better team. Now, that's probably largely because of the quarterback, but they are a much more confident team, much more accomplished team. I'm furious that we're not going to watch as Caleb is the second best quarterback out there. But it's in Washington, and I think probably the biggest thing is that if you actually look at the odds of that game, what are the actual? Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, Bears are just 2.5-point favorites, and that's even with the quarterback thing. So maybe there's a little something there. Our model does have Washington winning, but obviously that's because it assumes that the quarterback is going to be there. So you could go that route, but I think if there was one that you would lean on, it might be this game. Now, you could also say that's the dumbest thing because the Rams might be the worst team and Minnesota's playing really good football and whatnot. But look, this is every once in a while, it just takes that first loss. A team is it's flying high and it doesn't quite understand why it's up there and what's going on. And the first time it gets jarred, that's when the spiral starts. They just got beat in a real tough game against a opponent that you really don't want to lose to. This was a very important game to continue to assert your dominance in the division, and you kind of feel like long-term it's going to be hard to maintain this as it is against the rest of the NFC North, and then you get knocked down a peg, and then you got a real quick turnaround to face the Rams, and not only is it a quick turnaround after a really tough game, but you got to travel all the way to L.A., which is about as far as you can get for any opponent. Thursday games are always weird, so I really think if I had to pick an upset, ignoring the pessimistic voice in my head that says that we should be the ones that are worried, I think Minnesota makes the most sense, if for no other reason than exactly like I said, Thursday alone is the biggest reason. Thursdays are weird. They're always weird. Another very important variable is that the Rams, although probably still not good regardless, they are expected to have Cooper Kupp back. That's a big deal. So add Cooper Kupp back to this offense, maybe give them a little bit of a spark. And I think really it's going to come down to largely how well can Matt Stafford handle the pressure. And I think Cooper Kupp helps that. If he's able to neutralize that pressure by getting the ball out quickly to reliable guys like Cooper Kupp, maybe they can sustain some offensive success, start to score some touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. Make them actually have to come back as opposed to, again, the only time they've ever had to come back in a game, they ended up losing the game, even though they played admirably. They ended up losing that game. So see if you can jump out to a little bit of a lead, catch them off guard. Hopefully, again, take a little bit of smoke out of that building, out of that room. None of that made sense. The confidence has got to be a little bit shaken. They're going to try to come back and be like, oh, that was we're still really good or whatever. If the Rams come out and just jump out and punch you right in the mouth and score 7, there may begin to be sort of a, oh crap. Like, is this just what happens now? Or do we just suck now or what? Anyways, go Rams, and I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.